Hey there, people! So today I'm going to be telling you about modifiers for your weapons and other items, and how to reforge those weapons and items to get better modifiers. So basically, the deal is that weapons, tools, and accessories have a 75% chance to be created with a modifier. Of course, sometimes you will get things that do not have a modifier, and that modifier can be negative or positive. Generally, the word used will indicate its relative power. So whether you're crafting an item most of the time, and I'll get to that, or whether you're looting an item or buying an item, generally 75% of the time it'll have a modifier. The exception that I'm noting here is that on mobile platforms, for instance iOS and Android, when you craft an item, it doesn't get a modifier, but one can still be added by reforging. So modifiers can be added or changed by reforging the item with the Goblin Tinkerer. Quick review. To get the Goblin Tinkerer, you will need to defeat the Goblin army, and then you'll find him after that somewhere in the cavern layer. You'll be wandering around, he'll be tied up, and you'll just need to talk to him, and if you have an empty house, he'll move in. Generally, the Goblin army comes in the first time. It'll come in the 3 or 4 days after destroying your first Shadow Orb or Crimson Heart. So, reforging costs money. Let's go down and see my Goblin Tinkerer. He's down here, living in my substandard housing in the dirt underground here. But anyway, yeah, so reforging costs money, produces a random positive or negative change to the modifier. The cost to do the reforging is relative to the current value of the item. Higher modifiers increase the value of the item, lower tier modifiers decrease the value, so it is relative to the current value of the item. If you have an item with a higher modifier, it's going to cost you more to reforge it if you're trying to get an even better one or a different one. So normally that cost is a third of what it would cost to buy that item. Now, discount card from the Pirate Invasion lowers the reforge cost by 20%. That's a whole other story to get one of those. I don't have one, so I'm just going to go in here. Now, as far as how to reforge an item, it's also important to note that the effects of reforging are the same on all platforms, since reforging was not changed in the 1.3 update. And the modifiers, if you're crafting items, if you're taking a bunch of items and crafting them into one item, that crafted item is not affected by the modifiers that were on the ingredients, the ones that went into it. So for instance, I have a Terrablade. I combined 4 swords to make that Terrablade. Each of them had, their own modifiers. Those modifiers on those ingredients for the Terrablade do not affect the modifier that was produced for the Terrablade itself. It's still just crafted with a random modifier. So the fact that I got a superior Terrablade is just dumb luck. Okay, so how to reforge. On PC, I'll show you first, and then I'll tell you how to do it on the other platforms. On PC, you'll just need to talk to your Goblin Tinkerer, choose the reforge option, and it gives you a little box. Place an item here to reforge, and then I'm going to see my pirate staff has no modifier, so I'll put that there, and there you go. It tells you here, this is the cost, 1 gold, 66 silver, this is how much money I have, and if I push this button, I'm going to pay that much to reforge it, and there we go. Now I have a masterful pirate staff. Simple as that, that's how you do a reforge. So, on mobile, same general idea, you're going to open the Goblin Tinkerer's shop, place the item in the uppermost slot, and you'll press the reforge button. On console, you will speak to the Goblin Tinkerer, click the reforge option, and then items that reforge will be highlighted in your inventory. You'll just need to choose which item you want to reforge and push the reforge button. So it's a similar idea. Now, accessories, those are of course the ones that go over here. You'll see, again, my wings don't have a modifier. Accessories can have one of any 19 modifiers in 6 different categories. All the modifiers for accessories are positive. So I don't have a modifier on here. No matter what I do, it's going to get a better one. There we go. Now I've got fleeting frozen wings. It gave me a movement boost. So, yeah, how it works is this. Accessory modifiers are active when the item is equipped. For accessories, the random aspect of reforging, because reforging is essentially random what you get when you push that reforge button. The random element is which category and level will be applied. So there's 19 modifiers between 6 categories. The categories are defense, mana, critical strike chance, damage, movement speed, and melee speed. So the only one that applies as far as mana is the Arcane Modifier for accessories, which gives you plus 20 mana. Critical strike chance has 2 levels, and the other categories all have 4. So this one was movement speed. They're anywhere from +1 to +4. For defense, it's literally +1 defense up to +4 defense. For the other ones, it's +1% up to +4%. Critical strike is just +2 and +4. Those are the only percentages. And the other ones, there's all 4 levels. So I got movement speed, I got +2% movement speed. If I keep going, I could eventually get +4% if I am willing to keep reforging to get that, if that's what I want. So you can kind of buff your equipment for defense or for mana boost or critical strike chance, damage, movement speed, melee speed. Any one of those, and you will have one modifier. Now, as far as weapon modifiers can also be applied to tools that damage enemies. So you'll see I have a large Spectre pickaxe. Because a pickaxe can damage enemies, that can have a modifier. And large, by the way, only applies to melee weapons that can be swung, but that's another story. So let's get to that. So weapon modifiers or tool modifiers only apply when the weapon is being used, and they cannot modify stats the weapon or item does not have. So weapons that do not have knockback cannot have modifiers that change knockback. So the best universal modifier that can apply to almost all options is Godly, which is a boost of 15% damage, 5% critical strike, and 15% knockback. Now again, weapons and tools, etc., that don't have knockback cannot get that modifier. So the best then is Demonic, which has the same damage and critical strike boost, but doesn't have the knockback boost. Again, those weapons that lack knockback cannot be godly, so the best for them will then be demonic. But there are also various other modifiers that are either common to most weapons in general or specific to either melee, ranged, or magic. So the best modifier for melee weapons is generally legendary, although for tools, there's a light modifier, which makes them faster because you're probably not worried about damage in terms of tools. So for a pickaxe, the best modifier would be light. In this case, Spectre pickaxe. That's the best modifier I could get because that would be faster. So best overall modifier for ranged weapon is Unreal. That applies boosts in a variety of categories. Those, again, without knockback, the best then becomes Demonic, which is one of the universal modifiers, because that gives you damage boost and critical strike chance. Best overall modifier for magic weapons is Mythical. That does things like reduce your mana usage and so on, as well as damage boost and so on. But for summoning weapons, Ruthless is better because you're not so concerned with your mana usage and some of those other aspects. So there are exceptions all through, but generally those are some of the best ones. Another thing that I want to talk quickly about here is rarity and item tiers. So the rarity of an item, in other words, its tier, is indicated by a color. So the very worst ones, or the base ones, start out with gray and then white, and then they move up. Blue is a little better, and so on. Modifiers can, by getting your equipment reforged, or the modifier that applies when you first get it, that can raise or lower the rarity tier up to 2 tiers from the base level, up or down. So they can raise or lower that rarity value. They can also raise or lower the value if you're selling that item in turn, because those modifiers again do affect the value. So the colors can get a bit confusing. I'm not going to go into a lot of details there, but generally higher tiers are brighter colors. So yellow, cyan, red, and purple, in that order, yellow being the lowest of the top few. Cyan being a little better, red being a little better than that, and then purple. Those last two are actually, I think, only on PC, particularly the purple. And then in expert mode, the items that are exclusive to expert mode will have a rainbow color there, indicating their rarity or tier. So let me just show you what that means. So I have a Terrorblade. It's a superior Terrorblade. It's red rarity or tier. So in other words, that's very high, very high level. My Uzi I got a little earlier in the game. It's yellow. My flamethrower, I think that's lime, which is, I think, a step or two below yellow. I think one step below yellow. My venom staff is cyan because it's pretty rare, and so on. So basically, you can look when you're actually mousing over or selecting your items, and it shows the name. The color indicates basically its relative value or rarity. And of course, torches are white because they're very common. And if I go up way back to my platinum axe, even though, you know, early in the game that's valuable, but in the game in general, in the overall scheme of things, it's very common, so it's white. So that's just a quick chat on that as well. And that's actually most of what you need to know. That you can look up a specific chart if you're looking for particular, you know, what's the best modifier for a particular item, that kind of thing. I'm not going to try to tell you all that. I will give you a link in the description of this video to the modifier page on the wiki, which lists all of that, basically the best general modifiers for certain categories as well as for particular equipment. That's all there on the wiki, so I will link you to that. And I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what else you'd like to know or see, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.